Welcome everyone to the Community Open Hour. It is Thursday, June 10th. My name is Sage Robbins. I'm your host today. Janae is out and we will carry on. We have a few things to talk about today. Our agenda, we're going to do some general updates and talk about Saltconf and working groups. We do have some release updates, and I'm going to put in here the SALT enhancement proposals that we'll talk about every week. And then we'll have some discussion on state requisites, and then we'll move to just general question and answer if anybody has anything. So moving right along our general updates, we do have a virtual meetup that's going to be happening on the 16th. We actually have two. The first one that is at our regular time, which is US 5 p.m. Mountain, will be behind the scenes of the hacks with Tom and Chunga. Join us for that. And it will be recorded. And then we also have another virtual meetup that will be that same day for people who are in the US, but it will be for those that are in another time zone. So we have it all here, and that'll also be recorded, and Tom will be talking as well about Config Management 101. Join us for that. Of course, we also have the store, the Salt Stack swag. So this is anything with our previous logo prior to acquisition. There are a lot of things that are now gone, but please check it out. Let us know if you need help there. We're happy to help. Get your swag. And then Saltconf. Saltconf is coming, and we will be opening the call for speakers soon. So we want to hear from people from the community. We want this to be very community focused. We want to hear how you guys are using Salt, how it's helped you in your configuration management days, and what you're doing with it that we probably haven't even thought of. Working groups. Today, the Docs Working Group is going to meet at 2 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. UTC, and we have a guest from the Good Docs open source project, Carrie Crow, and we're going to be talking about issue templates. So join us today. We'll probably be doing a few other things as well, and we look forward to that. Release date. So the point release is now set for June 23rd. Thank you everyone for your patience in this. We were able to get a critical issue fixed with the memory leak, and have a new date for that. So we will continue marching towards that date. And as we have now pushed this out quite far, I am going to look at the Silicone Release date, which was set for July, where we're now setting this in June, and we want to have a full RC process prior to GA release. We're going to look at that date and maybe push that out a little bit. I should have that date next week or prior, and look for that announcement in Slack and in, let's see, IRC and all our other platforms that you hear from us. And then as we look at the Silicone Release, we do have 203 open issues. This is a little bit of a jump from last week. We were at 192. We have 40 that are unassigned. We have 40 that are closed. And then we're also asking for help for those that are unassigned. If people could either self-assign or open a PR and link it and mention me at Sage the Rage on GitHub, and I will make sure that that gets processed. I am also looking at the dates for the port to Master Jam, where we're going to be focused on tests. This will still be before October. I don't quite have that date just yet, but we will be posting that soon. And then we will do a Docs Jam sometime before November, and looking to do that as well. So Salt enhancement proposals. As I was looking at this, I actually have this out of order. I think I wanted to do this one first. So here's our Salt enhancement proposals list. This is our current open Salt enhancement proposals. So these are in a variety of statuses. So some are in final comment period, some are in draft still, some are old, and we just need to have some time to get to them, such as 19 and 21, which is at the top there. And trying to make sure that I'm carving out time to do that each week. So I've been actually working on this for a couple of weeks now and spending more time there and trying to get these pushed through into their respective final status. So either rejected or up for grabs or approved. We did approve the LibreChat SEP this week. And so that's gone through. And then we've also merged in the changes on the documentation for that. So that you should be seeing that all go through. Then looking at the process, as I was looking at the process this week, I mentioned this to Gareth, that I think we probably need an FAQ section And these are some of the ideas that I was thinking need to go into that to keep it top of mind, something that we get asked a lot and something I go over a lot with many people, internal and external. And there are 5 core team approvals in order to be accepted. The timeframes are a little bit subjective, even though we've said that they aren't in the process. There are times that we just can't get to everything in the timeframes that we've set forth. So we've been a little bit casual on those, and I think that's been okay. And then rough consensus and what that means. The rough consensus does need to come from those core team approvals. And we're also looking for ideas and comments, concerns, rebuttals from the community for things that we haven't thought of. But then that is not necessarily the final implementation plan. It's to say, yes, we think this is a good idea, or no, we don't, it needs more planning, and then to go forward with that. So looking at these steps just really quickly, run Salt Master as a non-root user. This is actually coming up quite a bit in the security working group and in the security space in general. And I believe on Monday when we have our working group, we will probably dive into this quite a bit and start hammering away at this SEP and answering some questions there and looking at that more heavily. The on changes state requisite. Gareth, this one's yours and it's been out there a little while. I think it just needs your time, doesn't it? Which is, that's just a very high in demand commodity.
My copious free time.
Right? We have looked at that. I think we're going to try to figure that out for Gareth and give him some time to do that. Maybe I'll even help him. And then the file protocol listing details. This one's in its final comment period. And I believe that it has, gosh, I'm actually drawing a blank. I believe that it's pretty close and we just need to get the final approvals on that, on where it is today. I don't believe it has anything pending, but I should take a look and we'll do that. Add the sub-state return as in a draft state and needs a little bit of attention from me. And then add the runtime registers to SALT as in final comment period, along with the Tiamat, the inclusive language, and the proposed changes to the package beacon. And then we have the event-driven state enforcer that's been out there a little while and also needs a little bit of work. And then we have these 2 new ones, the master key rotation for disconnected minions, and then the re-adding the 0.0 to the major SALT versions. So please go comment on those. If you haven't already, we would like to hear from the community on these, especially as these 2 new ones, and want to keep that conversation rolling and keep the communication open. Any questions on SEPs? Comments, concerns, rebuttals, discussions? If not, we'll move right ahead. So today we actually wanted to bring in a discussion topic. Sebastian has joined us. It's late for him in the Netherlands, but we want to talk about the POC and GitHub that is on the state requisites. In fact, let me stop sharing this. And I have it open. And Sebastian, you want to give us a quick overview?
Yes, I will attempt at doing so. For me, it started with a simple possible bug report on something that we noticed in our environment, where certain states, when using test is true, would not report going to change or do something. At some point, one of my colleagues said that we cannot fully trust state a test is true. Things might still happen that we don't know upfront. So we started looking into this, and before we started, the whole state requisite was basically magic to us, little to no understanding. Not going to say that I fully understand it now, but I have more knowledge at least. What we discovered or found out was that if a state does not report changes during test is true, then certain requisites won't be triggered. We mainly tested with a watch and on changes, I believe. And I think in the examples that there have been multiple examples. We tested with a command running and a service running and or package installed, I believe. In certain scenarios when, for example, a command run doesn't report changes during test is true because it simply does not run during a test. It reports no changes, and therefore any state that depends on that command run doesn't mention going to do something like a service would say, I'm going to restart. So we started playing around with editing the various salt files, and one idea was, well, maybe all states should return a dictionary in test is true mode, which makes sense for states such as file managed, where a changes during test is true is something like a diff, like this is the file before, after the state has run, it'll be this. But since this is test is true, nothing has happened yet. The same cannot be said for a command run, for example, because a command run doesn't do anything during a test is true. It doesn't know which PID file or PID number it'll have, or what the standard out and standard error will be on a command that you are running. So we started talking with different people via Slack, Eric, and other channels. And there seems to be a discussion between various groups, where one group says states should always return changes, even when running test is true. And other people are saying maybe we should think of something different other than changes. And while this was going on, someone else in the community, I think it's at the bottom of the proposal on GitHub, if you scroll down, someone, Amendlik, I think, I'm not probably not pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah,
Adam. Okay.
Yep, Adam.
Yes. Adam linked in a sort of a discussion and various attempts from a long time ago on, well, basically the same subject matter. But that idea in the past was scrubbed. It had to do with P changes, like presumable or possible changes. Well, I had a nice chat with him about what could happen and all the different viewpoints. It was a good talk to have. So when last week when you guys said, well, if you want to have something to discuss in this weekly meeting, let us know. And that's why I brought this up. I'm wondering how should we approach this? I'm just a Salt user. I have some knowledge on Python. I can change things and make code. But this is obviously not something I've done before, such as committed to SaltStack. On top of that, I don't even know where to begin. It's like I made some changes. I want to discuss this with people, but how do I go about this, and how do I get the discussion going? That's that's one of the questions, a few questions that I have. Sure. And also the different viewpoints. It's really interesting. And which direction should we go towards? What's the proper solution for this, or the supported solution, I guess?
Yeah, all good questions. And I think this is a great place to start that, and it'll probably continue even beyond today, but thank you for bringing it up. Gareth, do you have anything?
So initially when I read this, when I read the previous one, yeah, this one here, and I got down to the bottom, I was kind of thinking like, well, I mean, initially I was thinking like, oh yeah, this does make sense. The would return, or would, I forget what you phrased it, would return, or would change, would run, that was it. Kind of made sense. But but then as it got to the last comment, I was thinking like, well, maybe the better solution is to fix this, fix the changes dictionary so it actually does reflect what things are going to change in true. And I remember the P changes feature, and it was removed, if I remember right, because it was confusing, because it was such a mess. It didn't quite work right, how it was intended. So I guess, I mean, long story short, I don't know what the right solution here is, because you're right, there are some states it's going to be difficult to, particularly command.run, or any of the command functions, but there's a few others where it's going to be difficult, unfortunately, to kind of predict what changes they're going to make, and present them in a test.true, test equals true situation. And I will
because
say
the
like
preferred
the other,
method. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Obviously, the preferred method would be for every state in existence to return predicted changes. That should always be the end goal. I fully agree with that. Even when I read all the discussion on the P changes, and in my talks with Adam, came to the realization that yes, every state should aim towards always returning changes dictionary with predictable changes. But we've, for example, we made some custom states in our own environment, and it's difficult for. It's not always possible to return changes, and I keep going back to the command run example. I played around with that in the beginning and started returning just like strings of text, like saying something mentioning from this command is going to do something, just something to inject into the changes dictionary. But it didn't feel clean or nice or the intended like. So maybe I would maybe that's why I thought of the would run, the phrasing, or there might be a better word to use for that. But maybe I saw it more as a fallback scenario, like certain states, either custom or core states within SaltStack, that are unable to predict accurately what the changes will be, have some sort of fallback to not to prevent the requisite system from failing to doing from doing its thing.
Yeah, I think something like that, if we made it so that, rather than trying to figure out exactly what a particular state is doing or will do, if we just had it so it's like, okay, if you run it in test equals true, it will show, if you run this state, it will also run this one over here. It won't necessarily tell you what that state's going to do. It's up to you to then go and look at the state, or have some idea in your mind, like, okay, this state is going to do this, but at least it'll give you some idea of what the requisites will like lead to, if that makes sense.
Yes. Because right now we have, that's why one of my colleagues kept mentioning, like, we cannot fully trust the test equals true in our environment, and well, certain people get anxious when when stuff happens during a normal state apply or high state, and unexpected changes occur, services get restarted. And from an engineering perspective, we can probably safely assume that certain things will happen, but not everybody has that insight. And having an accurate test equals true would be beneficial, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I will say too that the state system and the requisite system is can get very complicated very fast, as evidence from the one of the other steps that we have in place, the what is it, we were just talking about it, my mind is blank. It's the one that I still need to comment on. What was the one you just mentioned at Sage?
On changes.
On changes.
Was it on changes? Yeah, it might be. Yeah, there were some changes in there to go in like a certain direction, and then it turned out the assumption was not correct. So of all the things that usually break in the state system, the requisite portion of it is one of the ones that's kind of easy to break, unfortunately.
Hey folks, if I can like join this discussion, another community member here. Hello. We actually kind of thought about this problem as well. In our like custom states, we always return changes for the test mode, and we like really care about it, but it's our custom like code, and we test it and yada yada. And we think that returning these changes key is the way forward. I don't think we should complicate the return dictionary even more. And you have this result key which indicates if changes happened or not, right? So it's like two things. But I mean, whatever idea you come in this discussion, the problem is there is a lot of states, and there is no enforcement of whatever decision what you can come up with. And that's, I believe, my main problem. Like, yeah, okay, we can agree, like every state should return changes. Like, how can we enforce it? I'm not sure, maybe something like item could help here. Like, I have no idea. Or like test suite should cover like test mode. But once again, you cannot cover some specific cases. I mean, it's close to impossible, I think, to make it like 100% enforced.
Right, and that was the, from what I remember, that was the general idea of the P changes. It was trying to, these were like proposed changes, or I forget what the phrasing was for it, but it was supposed to be like, these are what changes will happen in test equals true.
Wait, but it's the same thing. I mean, whatever you call it, you have to write the logic that will fill this key in the dictionary, right? It doesn't matter if it changes or P changes. And if you didn't, there is none. Yeah.
Right. No, that's my point. Like, so it's exactly what you're saying. Like, it gets complicated. And what Sebastian was saying, it gets complicated because you don't necessarily, there isn't a guaranteed way to know across all the states that you're going to get changes. Like the one we mentioned, commands and the command functions, the command module, state module with all the functions in there. You can't guarantee what those changes are because it's running some arbitrary commands. So you don't know what the return code is, you don't know what the output is. So you can't necessarily say predict what that output is going to be.
Yeah,
and
but
there's a few different states that are like that.
Yeah, but in that specific case, you can just say, hey, the change is gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so something like a uniform addition to the changes dictionary, like the exact changes aren't known, but at least this will trigger requisites. Or is each state going to implement it in their own way? I agree. There's no way to enforce this or enforce a standard or of any sorts.
Yeah. Sage, can you go back to Sebastian's? Yeah, I think this one. So if we scroll up a little bit from here, so this is I'm just curious, like what the output looks like. Okay, so this is before. Nope, right.
This is before, yeah.
So this is without
my modifications, yes. And here you can see the service running. Service running says that it's already running. It's not mentioning going to restart.
I see. Okay, and it will, like without test equals true, it will restart.
Yes, because the service running depends on command 1, the one above, and command 1 doesn't have any changes. Its result is none, but its changes is empty.
Yeah, the easy fix is just move comment to changes, and that's it. It will fix it immediately in the test mode.
True.
Yeah, that would do it.
In dictionary form, then yeah.
And then if we scroll down with your change, it's set to be restarted. Got it.
So the way I changed it, that I made it, is that the actual output doesn't change for us as Salt users. So it's behind the scenes. It doesn't change the output of the of people, what people would expect right now. I think that was my strain of thought, so to say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, looking at your change, it looked fairly straightforward, not complicated. As far as like the would run addition.
But I agree with the comment made earlier that in custom states or other states, how any solution to this, how would this be enforced or made aware? Like we created our own custom states as well. There's some documentation, I believe, on how to begin a basic state and how it sort of works. Would that be the proper place to report this solution then?
Yeah. So the proper way to do it would be to have like if we went the would run route, the proper way would be to have it as a like a global requisite where it's not in the individual state files. That way, like any custom state modules you have, it just pulls it in. There was a recent change where we had something that was in like individual state files, and then we pulled it into the global state system. So that would be something to look at as an example to do that. But you definitely want it on a global level, not like individual state modules.
What about the what was just said about having the comment as change? I think that's the something that Kirill said.
Yeah.
Is that the easiest solution for states such as this one, like the command run and or custom states? It needs to be in a dictionary form, obviously, but
right.
I think one of the comments on the P changes discussion was that the changes dictionary should report changes, possible changes or predicted changes, and that's why I mentioned earlier having attempted with various string texts in the changes dictionary made the system work, but it didn't feel clean or proper to use or abuse changes for that, because it doesn't mention changes. It mentions just some descriptive text.
Right. Yeah. My only hesitation there would be if someone is relying on there not being something in changes when they run it in test equals true, and all of a sudden we're introducing changes when there aren't actual changes, has the potential to break states, which
I know some of our customers. Yeah, I know some of our customers use the state output for audit trails, especially in government and or banking. So that I could see where having changes populated with changing text. Not sure how to clarify it, but yeah, that might be noisy to them. Or
yeah, like I said, like you're introducing a change, or potentially introducing a change that's going to show changes where there previously weren't changes, and there aren't changes, but it looks like there's changes. So I would agree with with Kirill's comment that it would easily solve the problem, but potentially break people's expectations of the state system, which would be bad.
obviously this is not something we're going to fix in this this live talk. How would we go ahead with this? Where in the community is the proper place for this discussion?
Yeah, I think so Sage and I were talking right before open hour when she mentioned this, and I think the best thing would be to add a SEP, like a salt enhancement proposal, with the proposed idea of wood run is true, just to get some discussion about it, to get some like other people's feedback on the right approach. And we can kind of kick around some ideas of the best way to solve this. Someone else might have a different view on it. I think I interrupted you, Sage. Did you have something to weigh in?
Oh, I was just going to say the SEP process. Yeah, this is probably, we were talking about it before, and we think that this is probably the best place to do this. This is kind of it's not really a forum, but that's kind of how we're using it in some ways. And I think this is actually a good place to do that. And then we can revisit it as more comments come in, and we can bring it back to this meeting, or we can hold other meetings just on it if it warrants that, and we have enough discussion to do that. And then we do have a SEPs channel in Slack where we could take this if it needs more communication than what we have here in sort of an asynchronous format. Not that Slack is really not asynchronous, it is, but it and that's kind of our proposal for how to communicate it more broadly. But of course we're open to other ideas too, if people want to continue to bring this up as a topic and here, that's great. I think the best is to go forward with a SEP.
Okay, thank you for including it in this meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for bringing it up. It's great. So now we are just moving on to the general question and answer session of the meeting, or if anybody has anything else on this or other SEPs. We would love to hear from you. This week, the core team has been working on tests and been focused on getting the test suite to green. They've made some really good progress, and they will continue. I'm not entirely sure how long we'll continue, probably the rest of this week. And I can give more details about that probably by the end of the week. And so you'll probably see that your PRs are a little slower to be reviewed and to be merged into master, and that's just because we're focusing on tests right now. But we'll get back to that as soon as the test suite gets to green. And I think that helps everybody because that'll make your PRs run faster, get merged faster, be more reliable on the changes that are being merged in. Any questions about that? If not, we can always end early. You guys are a quiet bunch today. Well, thank you as always for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you for your topics and your candor. We appreciate that as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Happy Thursday, everyone. Bye.